don't know the love that's involved in it. They're my family. Every kid that ever played for me, they're my family.
Y'all ever heard that story, David and Goliath? We are David today, y'all understand?
Yes,
I play every game like it's my last. People just gotta learn. It's where your heart is.
We never give up. Never give up.
I love you for being strong, man.
I want to see you live, and I want to see you do the right thing.
I just want to see more hard work, more dedication, more teamwork. Good job, Max. I knew you was gonna come back, baby. More picking each other up.
Let's go.
To the river! That's what champions is made of, right there.
Start the show!
Welcome to Cordkillers. What we do here is report on what we call the intel from what we call the front line of what we call the cord-cutting revolution. Basically, we want you to be able to watch what you want to watch whenever you want on whatever device you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, yeah, I'm called Brian Brushwood, and I'm, what you'd like to say, glad to be here.
You know who else might be what you call glad to be here is Nicole Lee.
Woo!
Hi, I'm Nicole Lee, and I'm also glad to be here.
Well, welcome to Air Quotes, the show. It's great for audio listeners.
Yes, you can hear it in our voice.
Hey, man, so Bryce, tell us a little bit about Coach Snoop.
Yeah, that's an upcoming documentary series on Netflix about Snoop Dogg, who went and coached a high school football team.
That's a thin line between reality show and documentary series.
Sure.
This strikes me as something straight out of Netflix's recommendation engine, where it's like, for people who like pot comedy and football documentaries. They're like, great, let's get Snoop to do one. Come on.
Do you think they've ever tried like A/B testing in the recommended feed, like making up a thumbnail and a title for a show that doesn't exist and throwing it in the recommended feed and then seeing how many people click on it, and when they click it just says 404, like whoops, and then just collect all that data and you're like, apparently transforming robot dad president has to be a show.
That's Voltron, right?
Yeah, okay, maybe.
can't
Obama
imagine-
Voltron has to be a show.
I can't imagine the internet would not have sniffed that out were that the case. But yeah, it kind of feels that way, doesn't it? I'm looking for this. Is February 2nd? Is that what you said, Bryce?
Yes, February 2nd.
Now, Bryce, you had previously spoken very highly of Last Chance University, right?
Yes. And I got that same vibe.
Yeah.
And after hearing the rumor mill that maybe things went south at the school that they went for Last Chance U, and they are switching schools possibly for the next season.
Wow.
This is more of this. This is great. These stories are fantastic and fascinating.
And it's so surprising because I know that you yourself are not overly attracted to sports shows.
Sure, but there's still stories of perseverance and strength and dedication, and also like
So you are a fan of those things.
I know.
I've been saying this for years. I was like, I think he is a fan of perseverance.
All right, folks, we got lots more to talk about, so let's get right into the primary target. I'm going to tell you a story. It's going to take a little bit of history and bring you right up to the modern day, but I think it's a fascinating story, and you tell me whether you think it is just a one-off or a story of perseverance. Richard Shankman directed a film called The Man from Earth. You may have seen it. It's a guy who claims to have been on Earth for thousands and thousands of years, since caveman times. It was low budget, had no marketing. Screener got posted to the Pirate Bay, and it took off. A week or two before the DVD release date, the IMDb movie meter jumped 11,000%. It's got a very high rating there now. Eric Wilkinson, a producer for the film, reached out to the pirate sites to thank them. I believe we talked about this on the show. Began asking people who watched and liked the film to donate on PayPal. So not crack down, we're going to sue you, but like, hey, if you liked it, kick a little money our way. Shankman is on record stating that he thinks file sharing was the key to the success of the film. The movie now has a healthy audience. It's available on platforms like Netflix, so they continue to monetize it. And the sequel, Man from Earth Holocene, is out now. It's available on Vimeo. You can rent it or buy it. It's available on MovieSaint.com. And they even have a thing on MovieSaint where you can get a refund if you don't like it. But the producers this time just went and uploaded it to torrent sites themselves. They said, we're not going to wait for somebody to rip off a screener. We're just going to put it there. If you get a version, say, from the Pirate Bay, it will have rich information and notes on the movies, tips on how to share it with others. It's like the most helpful Pirate Bay listing you'll ever see. And it includes a brief introduction from the director, from Schenkman, asking folks, hey, if you like it, make a donation. Here's our website, manfromearth.com.
So, a couple of things. First of all, we did talk about Man from Earth in Spoiler in Time, and I thought it was a very quaint, it was an extra long Twilight Zone episode or a really good one-act play. Very, very low budget and just mostly wonderful for how curious it was. Here's the question. Is this a case of this guy gets it and clearly everyone else should too? Or is it a case of this guy happened to win the piracy lottery and not everyone will? And of course, once you win the piracy lottery, and not necessarily piracy, well, actually, yes, no, this crap was pirated and he ended up better for it because he came out not with dollars so much as attention. He won the attention piracy lottery. So for him, obviously, his next move is to embrace that community, embrace that world, and double down on it. I think what he's doing is great. What I am concerned about is the holier than thous that will take from this the lesson, and this will become the rallying cry of everyone who's just like, well, if Game of Thrones would just give it away like Last Man from Earth, well, then they could be popular too. You know, that's what I worry about.
And that is an accurate machine learning created representation of the internet.
Of the holier than thous, yeah. Nicole, am I off here? Am I raining on a parade? Because I do agree this is a success story, and we want people to be aware that you can't force people to be good citizens, and that even the act of how you buy a thing affects how you enjoy it. And in this case, they're going out of their way to make it as easy as possible to enjoy it.
I think the I don't know what the right word for this is, but I think if it were only to live on the Pirate Bay just for infinity time, then we could call it maybe like a unique test case. But as you say, the fact that it's available, quote unquote, available on Netflix or other services is kind of an interesting twist to the story. And I don't know if this second movie will be on Netflix as well. I mean, I guess we'll see. But I think maybe that will be a test to see whether that becomes successful as well. I mean, I don't know. I think I want to agree, Brian, on your latter point that this is kind of a pirate thing lottery win. I don't know if any movie or any TV show can just come out and say, hey, pay us, donate to us on PayPal instead of paying us actual money. I mean, I don't know if that will be a thing that every company will embrace.
Nicole, tell me if this tracks with you. When I was, I guess in the late 90s, I paid a full price ticket to go see the Michael Keaton movie Multiplicity, in which he keeps making clones of himself and makes clones of a clone. And I walked out of that movie mad that I had spent $10 whole on it, right? But a few years later, it was on HBO. Seeing it on a smaller screen with a lower buy-in, seeing it essentially for free, I turned it on, gave it most of my attention. I was like, oh, that's a cute movie. It's good. It's good. And I wonder if that's not what's happening with The Man from Earth. Now, keep in mind, please don't be upset with me. I enjoyed watching The Man from Earth because I saw it for free on a small screen. I think it was Netflix at the time. I don't know that I would have loved it had I spent $10. And I wonder if by actively courting that audience, by going to the cheapest, freest, lowest buy-in area to experience it, that artistically it doesn't give it an automatic upgrade on how people rate it. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy talk and unfair of me to say, though.
I don't think it's unfair. I look at this and I say, this is an example of some people who say, I'm not going to be ideological about anything. I want to make money off my movie. So wherever I can put it that makes money, I will do it. And if it's going to show up in the Pirate Bay anyway, I want to have control of that. And I think that is a logical response. I think it's, like you say, Brian, I think it's tempting to see it as precedent setting or justifying, but that doesn't mean that this is the right model for every movie or every creative work. But I think what is the right model is look at what's happening and adapt yourself to it in a way that helps everyone out, and you will have a more successful product than you would have otherwise. I think HBO was doing that model with Game of Thrones when they said, we're not going to crack down on people sharing passwords, okay? We really think that that's against our interest to do that, and we'll get more subscribers in the long run if we don't crack down on that. It's looking at the reality of situations and adapting to that, and I think that's what these guys did. They benefited because they didn't have a marketing budget. On the other hand, if you have a very big marketing budget, you want to protect something and keep it secret until it premieres in the theater because you think it's going to live up to those expectations. So yeah, I don't think you're far off, Brian. I just think it's a great example of people reading the reality of the internet and what they've made and the connection of the two.
Yeah, but in general, we love stories like this, and again, we both liked Man from Earth. I'm excited to experience this, and I actually now face the moral conundrum of is there a morally superior way for me to experience Man from Earth?
I don't think so. I think that's the brilliance of what Shankman and Wilkinson did. Is like they're like, you just watch it however you want. We've figured out how to make money off it on Vimeo if that's your thing. We can make money off it off MovieSane if that's your thing. If you want to torrent it, great. We have a plan for that too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about legal, like they're on Vimeo on demand, buy rent it there. That seems like the most official way.
Okay. Yeah. Well, but again, like given that they're making both equally free, and I guess the moral quandary to the purchaser is, do I give the money before I know if it's good, or do I give the money after I know I enjoyed it?
I don't pretend to speak for Shankman and Wilkinson, but by their actions, I think what they're saying is, if you have a question, watch it for free first.
Yeah.
Then decide. That's fine.
Fair enough. That's if only more Hollywood filmmakers had caught on to the paradigm that we invented 4 years ago when we started putting out Cordkillers for free and said, if you like it, send us money. And we invented Patreon.com, and we invented the money that they said. Am I overstepping?
We invented fiat currency.
Damn.
And transactions.
Okay,
we invented the idea of transactions.
Maybe we didn't invent all those.
We invented the internet. We invented communication.
We did invent Cordkillers, though.
Yes, that's true.
Pretty sure we're safe in doing that. And Brian did talk me into like, hey, let's fund Cordkillers on Patreon because, that seems cool. And I was all for it. And we did it. And it's been working because of you. So if you are watching this for free and you're like, hey, that was worth $1, we'd love to have it at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Man, we're not unreasonable. We're much like the visionaries behind the Man from Earth. We'll say, watch it first, then decide if we're worth it. And then also, we'd love to have that $1.
And actually, we have a message from Kevin, who is asking about Game of Thrones. He's like, I'm starting it tomorrow, and was wondering if you've happened to cover season 1 in spoiler in time. Well, it's been on longer than spoiler time, so no.
Actually, I believe all the way back in the frame rate days, on another network, a different version of the show, we talked about all of these, every single episode. But the problem is it's all scattered. They're Creative Commons licenses. They're on different programs, different networks. Over 8 years now, the two of us have been running our mouths off. And what we want to do is if we can hit the magic number. What's the magic number?
1850.
1850, number of patrons or dollars per episode. Either one of those, we're going to put together an all-hands initiative to collect links to every single one of those so that you could take any of the shows we've ever seen and you could get our reactions just after we saw it so you could time travel to be with us to watch it side by side. That's pretty awesome.
So, please, if you're with us, stay with us. If you're not with us yet, join us. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Now, how to watch. And apparently more and more of you are watching through Netflix. Netflix had its quarterly earnings report and announced it has added 1.9 million subscribers in the U.S. That's up 4%. So those people who thought, they're done in the U.S. can argue that 4% is not that much. Or you could argue that 1.9 million is a lot. They're also up 6.4 million internationally. A few quarters back, international growth started to go faster than the U.S., which makes sense because the rest of the world is a lot more than the U.S.
But look at that difference, Tom. Look at like domestic. I don't want to say it's leveling off, but it seems to be a very incremental, linear progression, whereas that international is huge.
Yeah, international is a young market for Netflix. It's up 11%. Here's the other one that got me, Brian. Netflix now totals 117.6 million subscribers worldwide. U.S. pay TV entire, like all the cable subscriptions in the U.S. are 94 million.
Netflix is now reaching unprecedented levels of social influence worldwide. There has never...
I just want to force this point in. I'm sorry. Because there has never been a network that was like, we're just going to be for the whole world at once. There's never been a network this popular.
So there's a fantastic book. Tim Wu wrote The Master Switch years ago, and his most recent book is called The Attention Merchants. And one of the things he talks about is the old Amos and Andy radio play. In a world where there are only 2 or 3 radio stations in your available full stop, this syndicated program would nightly get 40 to 50 million viewers. This is back in early 20th century numbers. So we're talking half the country would tune in live, and we've never seen that kind of media dominance again. And even then, worldwide speaking, Netflix is still not approaching that level of percentage dominance. But by the numbers, Netflix now has the ability to craft, and maybe I'm getting Pollyanna here, but one of the trends that we see with Netflix is that we see celebrated works of art from all over the world presented in different languages, some of them translated, some of them subtitled. But I feel like we are becoming a more multicultural society here in the United States thanks to Netflix. And if that influence can be brought worldwide, I mean, when something becomes the biggest network in all of history, is that an evil empire, or is that an opportunity to bring real connections and growth between all of humanity? Nicole, I give to you this light and airy talk show question.
Can you repeat that light and airy question once again?
Well, I don't know.
Is Netflix the greatest achievement of mankind? Nicole.
It might be. It might be.
Might be.
And weirdly, as much as I used to roll my eyes about like, yeah, art's going to save the world, goddamn if it doesn't look like art is saving this world. It's so insane.
The Brian who hated multiplicity didn't think art could save the world, but the Brian who likes it does.
I think it definitely opened the door. I will say that, if you could arguably make the argument that Netflix was the pioneer for all of this. It kicked off the whole Hulu thing, kicked off the whole on demand over the air TV. Netflix was the progenitor of the Cordkiller movement. We could argue that, right? Like if it wasn't for Netflix DVDs, that started off, and then it sort of moved on to the whole streaming thing really, really early on, and it sort of kicked the movement off in a way. And I don't know if it's going to change the world, but it definitely is helping the Cordkiller movement along, and maybe you can say that is changing the world somewhat. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
There are a lot of different effects that it's having, and yeah, I honestly, to pull Brian's Pollyanna back from the edge a tiny bit, I don't know how much it's making things different. But I think it definitely is. I think it has a measurable effect. Maybe it's small, maybe it's big. I don't know. But you're right. We are watching Japanese television shows on Netflix at home in our house that we never would have been able to find. We never would have bothered to. And I talk to other people who are doing the same thing, or watching things from Germany or Portugal. This is something worth paying attention to because it is unseen before. And
I was going to say, heck, the whole Netflix originals began here in the United States with Lillehammer, a Norwegian television presentation that was suddenly labeled as an original.
It is crazy to think that Netflix, the disruptor of the big guys, is the biggest guy.
think about
Oh
this.
yeah, it totally is.
I remember there was in the 1980s an episode of Amazing Stories where aliens came to Earth, having watched all of our television shows, and in order to communicate, they took a child's xylophone and they did the 3 tones for NBC, and then but now. Worldwide, more people will know what you're talking about, whether you speak the language or not. If you look at their eyes and intensely go, dun dun, you know, that is phenomenal. That's extraordinary.
Very true.
Here's the other little nugget before we move on from the Netflix earnings report that I found fascinating. 3.4 million subscribers still get Netflix DVDs.
They really should split that off into another company.
They're all AOL subscribers.
With a really
I'm going to
name.
completely be honest with you, and I just ended my DVD subscription last month.
No kidding.
In December
Were you using it,
2017.
or was it like moribund for years?
It was because the whole thing with the Netflix DVD subscription, why it was attractive in the first place, was because you could have one DVD, you just have it, like in your collection for like a year, and there'll be no late fees or nothing. You could just have it for like a year.
It's a brand new product called Guilt by Netflix.
Yeah, that's right. So I just had this DVD in my shelf for like a year, and I just never did anything with it.
All your friends said this was the hot movie of the year. Would you like to ignore it all year long for only $5 a month? It'll sit right there beneath your streaming device.
Watching it gets more valuable the longer you wait.
Yeah.
It was literally it was a DVD of Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I couldn't find it anywhere on any streaming service anywhere. So like the only option to watch it was to get it on freaking DVD. I just did it.
That's amazing.
Anyway.
That's great. All right,
Anyway.
let's move on and talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location.
Under surveillance.
Oh, we got a lot of sections of Under Surveillance today. A couple premieres. The show Everything Sucks, a 1990s nostalgia show. If you felt left out by all the 1980s nostalgia shows, now you have a 1990s one. Arrives on Netflix February 16th.
Yeah, did you watch this trailer?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's okay. You said everything you need to say.
I did. I mean, I don't know. In the 90s, I was a 20-year-old who hated multiplicity and lived in Austin, Texas, much like you, Ryan.
Boy, it's I'm not a fan of the trailer, but it was also totally devoid of character development or any kind of story that would resonate with anyone. Also, it does look like, if you back that up, I believe they're using the exact same VHS effects pack that Brant uses on the modern Rogue. That's amazing.
Interesting. Netflix has also acquired The Joel McHale Show, starring Joel McHale, which is the entire name, by the way. The Joel McHale Show, starring Joel McHale, set to begin February 18th. Essentially, it's going to be The Soup.
Smart
There's
move.
lots of permutations about why, but it's him in front of a green screen talking about pop culture.
I'm surprised this must have been in the works for a while. Seeing Chelsea have that show get pulled back in terms of release and then eventually ended. And Joel McHale, I mean, they were shows on the same network, and I don't know. It's weird timing, but I really like The Soup more than Chelsea. So
Well, I to be honest, I think Chelsea. I'm making all this up since I only watched a little bit of each of those, but I can see Chelsea being a more expensive show, kind of trying to hit a prestige level, whereas The Soup is always a little more gawking at the trashy folk, cheap licensing and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it may be that Chelsea paved the way, and that this one is like, okay, well, there's room for this now.
Yeah, I'm just surprised Joel McHale wants to go back to the grind, really, because
He probably misses it, right?
maybe. Yeah,
I don't know.
In renewals, Amazon announced it's going to do a second season of The Tick. 10 episodes will premiere in 2019.
Was it good? Now that you've had time to digest it?
I didn't finish season 1 yet. Bryce, did you?
I didn't start it. I watched that pilot
Oh, you just watched the pilot.
I just watched the pilot and hated it.
Well, there, that answers it from our end, folks. Apparently, Amazon disagrees with us.
The tick busts in the wall, starts kicking their butts.
You are wrong.
But he's like really poorly dubbed the entire time.
In our green light district, Apple acquired the rights to a 10-episode comedy series produced by and starring Kristen Wiig. Also produced by Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine Company. Colleen McGinnis of 30 Rock created the series and will serve as showrunner. This is the 5th scripted acquisition by Apple. 3 of them are from Hello Sunshine, or at least co-produced by Hello Sunshine from Reese Witherspoon.
I'll wait till I see some trailers. You better not app me with planets again.
I mean, there is no comparison. Like, I feel like Apple probably should never have put out Planet of the Apps or promoted it, because you're not alone in being the person like, that's what Apple TV originals are like. Well, and they're like, no, we've got Spielberg and Jennifer Aniston and freaking Kristen Wiig. Come on, give us a break.
It's like your extended family that you only see once a year, and all they can remember is your crappy attempt at the family talent show last year. It's like for years and years, it's like, well, I graduated magna cum laude. He's like, yeah, but you lip synced to Bye Bye Bye. Pretty funny.
Nicole, do you have any feelings about these Apple originals and what they might do with them?
I just feel like there needs to be a quote unquote killer show or something for me to even pay attention to it at this point. And none of them, to be honest with you, right now really grab my attention. I mean, I'm sure this show is probably good, right? I mean, it sounds good, good cast, good producers, good showrunner. Whether or not it will be the show, I don't know. It doesn't really grab me, I guess. Yeah. And that's kind of the problem with a lot of these Apple originals in the first place.
YouTube has acquired Bodied, a satirical hip-hop film that Eminem produced. It's about a white, purportedly progressive graduate student who infiltrates a community of diverse battle rappers for the sake of his edgy thesis. Movie will have a theatrical release in 2018, but then will also play on YouTube Red.
I did not watch the trailer for this. Did you see it? Mm-mm. No? Okay. No. I'll take your word for it, Eminem. I also take a word. Sorry, go ahead.
This is one of those Sundance acquisitions, so he's going to throw up mom spaghetti any minute now. That's a promise. Netflix plans to run a series of 15-minute stand-up specials starring new comedians later this year. The specials will record in February at Atlanta's Terminal West Comedy Club. Kind of a cool thing where Netflix is like, let's find our next big star. Let's stop, paying Jerry Seinfeld and Dave Chappelle. Not stop, but let's find our next Dave Chappelle.
But you know what? That's brilliant, because a lot of talented. Think about how many people look for the next big, Louis C.K. Or Jerry Seinfeld or whatever, and a lot of them are touring with 70 minutes of material. They're doing colleges or whatever. They're doing their material, and then a producer looks at it and you're like, yeah, about a third of it is good. It's like, well, it used to be, it's like, well, then you had to pad it out. And you saw in this special, it was 45 minutes long, and there's 25 hilarious minutes and 20 minutes of filler. But it's like, because Netflix has the flexibility to not go that route, it's like, just do your best showcase. And by the way, keep in mind, this comes from somebody who made his living touring for 15 years, where all I would do is go to these conventions. I would do my best 15 minutes of my magic show, and then dozens of people would book me for the rest of the year. So the idea of taking that and virtualizing that experience to the Netflix crowd, I think, is very, very smart.
Is it called a tight 10 in comedy? Am I making that up? I'm probably embarrassing myself.
A tight 10 is a tight 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And then showcases range. It depend on. There's one company or one organization called NACA that would do 20-minute showcases. Another one would do 12-minute showcases and different.
I remember NACA.
Yeah, we all remember. Hashtag never forget. But at any rate, I think this is a smart play. It's going to open up the playing field because my guess is a lot of these young comedians would be happy to do this for free. Netflix can write a check for $0, and these people will say, you mean I get to say I'm on Netflix? I get to point to a tightly produced special that somebody else spent money on. That's my best 15 minutes. Yes, 100%. My mailing list will love that.
I also want to say Netflix is the perfect place for these young comedians to make their debut. Not on a traditional, regular network TV. Netflix is where the young audiences is where all the new fans are. This is a perfect venue for them.
Yep.
Well, this space has matured enough, folks, that now what to watch has to have what you can't watch. A cancellation section.
Hold on. Is this our new segment, Green Light, Red Light?
Yeah, this is the red light from the green light. Amazon is shifting from acquiring indie and niche films that will win awards to more commercial products that attract wider audiences. That means at Sundance, they're going after the $50 million budget movies, or maybe going after movies that aren't anywhere near Sundance instead of all those $5 million movies. Doesn't mean they won't sign any independent films anymore, but they're going to shift their focus. The strategy also applies to television series. Amazon announced it's canceling Jill Soloway's I Love Dick and Tig Notaro's One Mississippi.
This is the completion of Amazon's masterstroke. This is how you go from being a third place also ran. What?
The completion of the masterstroke.
Well, I mean, the show was called I Love Dick, and
hold
then
on.
Brian's. I think that's what's making people laugh.
Sorry, I
I was the last person to laugh. He's there.
Please excuse my ejaculation of excitement as we talk about this. All right.
Listen, this show is hard.
All of this is coming to a head. All right. The point is, here's my point: is this is how you go from third place to a top tier competitor? Is you take wild gambles when you have nothing to lose, and the moment you've established your presence, you start shifting over to a blue chip strategy.
Yeah. Hey, Nicole Lee, what have you been watching?
Hi. Honestly, I haven't been watching a lot since it's been CES and all that sort of crazy nonsense. But I just want to mention Star Trek because it came back recently from its hiatus, quote unquote, however many month hiatus it was. And I'm still trying. I will say this, sort of the second half of the first season of Star Trek. It's a little harder for me to keep going watching it now. I'm watching it out of momentum at this point, and my fingers are crossed still that that it'll right itself or it'll be good. But I wasn't very pleased with the first episode back, so we'll see what happens. But I am sort of fingers crossed at this point because I don't know where it's going, and it's losing me a little bit, but I'm still holding on.
I'm so the opposite of you. I felt the way you're describing the first half, and and coming back, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're referencing like episodes that I know, and it sent me down a lore rabbit hole, and I've started to really get into it more since it came back. So that is interesting.
Yeah, better.
All right.
Me.
Fair enough. Brian, what about you? What you been watching?
Dude, it's been a very, very busy weekend. We had out-of-town guests, and we shot episodes of The Modern Rogue and Scam School and so on, so I didn't get to watch as much as I wanted. I have not watched the last several episodes of Black Mirror. However, I did manage to catch the first half of Paddington, and specifically because we were talking about how Paddington 2 has this phenomenal 100% streak on Rotten Tomatoes, and so when I was scrolling through with the kids, I was like, oh, Paddington 1. And some of the kids had seen it, some of them hadn't, so I threw it on. I watched the first half of it, loved every second of it. It is adorable, and I want to run to the movie theater and watch Paddington 2 now.
It wasn't until I saw you had put it in our lineup that I remembered that I had also watched Paddington 1 this week.
Did you also find it utterly adorable and charming?
I mean, Eileen and I watched it. We're like, oh yeah, no, that was fun. Better than I would have expected before I learned about the ratings and everything. Had some really clever moments. Like, I don't know that I see it as 98%. Which is what Paddington 1 apparently was at the moment we watched it. So I'm very curious how Paddington 2 is getting 100%. But yes,
I mean, I assume
after seeing it, I'm like, oh, I get it. It's way better than I expected. It's very clever, and I do want to see the second one now.
And that's one of the curious things is the whole Rotten Tomatoes form of rating is fundamentally different from anything we've seen before. People want to rate it on a scale from 1 to 10 or whatever, but the idea that you could break all those ratings down into a generally positive or generally negative way is a new animal. And I don't know. I can't understand why even that 2% didn't like the first one, and so I can understand why 0% would say something bad about this one.
Listen, an unnamed source in my house speculated that there's not much else to compare it to right now. Maybe that could have an effect. But of course, that person doesn't speak on behalf of any particular company. So I have to keep their name anonymous. Hey, I have also been watching Deadwood and got a chance to watch Counterpart on Starz on Brian's recommendation. So that's going to be, we're going to kick that off in spoiler in time talking about that. But I also went from finishing my Star Trek Voyager years-long marathon to watching Deep Space Nine now. So now I'm going back to the show that covered my entire stay in Austin in the 90s. I have to say the first season does not wear nearly as well, but there's some pretty interesting and darker aspects of it than I remembered. So I'm having fun with that.
Tom, Nicole, Bryce, and I, we all came here to congratulate you. We're proud that you've given up heroin and that you've started methadone. This is all part of a journey. Soon you're going to live Star Trek free, and we're going to be just so proud of you.
So after Deep Space Nine, I can watch Enterprise? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. In fact, I insist.
All right, Bryce, what are we on the lookout for?
Hey, we got a letter from Dave. He writes, "Hi, Chad. Hey."
Is he being sarcastic? Is he playing with you?
He wrote Chad.
Does he mean the generic term Chad? Like, hey, jerk.
Yeah, that's me. I'm a real Chad, Brian. Okay. Hi, Chad. Thanks for including my last on the lookout suggestion, The Sniffer. I really enjoyed Brian's reaction to the concept, and I really hope he does eventually try out. This is the one. That was the one about the detective who uses his sense of smell. A great fish out of water type show that has been on Netflix for a while is BBC's Death in Paradise. It features a London police detective who is sent to a small British Caribbean island to investigate the death of a local police detective in a classic locked room mystery. After he solves the crime, he gets stuck there because no one in London wants him back. The problem is that he hates the sun, sand, food, drink, heat, and generally everything about island life. He uses his Poirot-style bring all the suspects together to reveal the killer method, and his crew of local crime fighters is a delightful blend of characters and really makes the show fun. After this, Dave gives a very big spoiler for a part of the show, so I'm cutting that out and realizing I didn't delete that. 5 seasons are up on Netflix right now. The 6th season just became available on DVD. Thank you, Dave in Wilco.
Or Waco. Either
or
way.
Waco.
Yeah, I mean...
Wilco,
thanks,
Roger,
Chad.
Waco.
If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email Chad, Cordkillers@gmail.com. All right, Brian, it's your turn this week to tell folks about the amazing thing you have going on.
Okay, can I, this is a weird one because it's so in flux, I don't know what I can say. We're going to have two major...
Well, fine, then I'll talk about my book, Bavaria.
Yeah, book Bavaria. Okay, let me tell 2 completely independent stories. Number 1, and they are truly independent. Number 1, remember last year when we shut down scamstuff.com to do mystery boxes and we only sold 2 products and they were mystery boxes? That was fun. New story. I wonder what will become of that this year. Separate story. Hey, remember when Cracked.com laid off all of its award-winning columnists and journalists? Mm-hmm. I wonder what will become of them. End of story.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me you're shutting down the site to sell people?
Unrelatedly,
in mystery boxes?
Let me just say that this Friday, you should visit scamstuff.com and also see if anything's different at themodernrogue.com. How about that? Was that smooth?
So if I'm hearing you right, blah, 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 we've got some really cool stuff coming to scamstuff.com and themodernrogue.com on Friday.
I can't confirm or... Yes, okay. That's right.
All right. Go pay attention. It'll all make sense on Friday. We promise.
It all makes sense today. There's plenty of context clues elsewhere.
It's called preserving mystery, Chad.
It's going to end up in the box. That's how it happens. All right, let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
Sources tell CNBC that Hulu Live has about 450,000 subscribers these days. Hulu Live, the live TV version of Hulu. YouTube Live apparently has 300,000, according to the same source. We also know that DirecTV Now said last month it reached 1 million subscribers. ComScore estimates that Sling TV has more than 2 million subscribers. The last PlayStation View numbers we have, though, are really old. Discovery CEO David Zaslav said in March that he thought it was around 400,000. That was March of last year. That's almost a year old. So one would expect that PlayStation View probably near 1 million, somewhere close to that. So these are small numbers relative to traditional cable, but they seem to be growing.
And fantastic news across the board. I mean, for anyone who is a fan of the cord-cutting movements, he said before muting his mic to sneeze.
Just to jump in here, I will say that as someone who's tried almost all of these live TV services, the only one that I've stuck with is Hulu Live, and partially because I already have an existing Hulu subscription, so it sort of made sense in my mind to sort of like have it all in one Hulu subscription service. And it's actually got a lot better in recent months. Like, initially it was pretty bad. Like, it was really choppy and the reception was kind of hit or miss. But in recent months, it's been pretty good.
To be honest, I'm kind of surprised because we're entering an era where you can't just say, I'm with so-and-so because they're the only good one or they're the best or whatever. Like, a lot of us are settling into our ecosystems based on inertia, because I know that you know, a couple of times I tried Sling TV, just that hadn't matured enough. And so I happen to be on PlayStation View when it matured. My family's happy. They don't bug me. Nobody asks me for nothing. So I'm probably just going to stick with it. But by all accounts, DirecTV Now is doing better and better. And it's ramping up to where you really can't lose. It's just a matter of getting the content that you want.
And honestly, this was the dream of all of this for me, was give me choice. We have gone, if you forget, we have gone from a world that gave you one choice to a world that gave you a choice between cable or, if you can pull it off, satellite, to I've got like 6 or 7 options now.
Yeah, and all valid and all super, super good. Speaking of valid options, MoviePass announced that it's going to start investing in movies. MoviePass eventually expects to make its money selling data gathered from subscribers to studios for marketing purposes. MoviePass believes it can affect ticket sales for movies by marketing them with its own app. Owning a percentage of the movie can then be another revenue stream. Is this dark? Is this 1984 territory, or is this
this
basically...
is incredibly smart. I mean, this shows MoviePass is serious. I think a lot of people are like, it's a Hail Mary pass, probably won't work. They'll be out of business in a year. This is MoviePass saying, no, we are majority invested by a data company who seriously believes they can sell this data to movie studios. So we don't care if we lose money on the ticket prices. That's not where we're going to make the money. And to hedge our bets, we're going to own the effing movies. So when we can make money, we can influence the actual attendance to the movies that we invest in. I don't know. I mean, there is that little bit of 1984 of like, are they going to have a conflict of interest here?
I think that they're just pretty much taking what most people perceive as trash, like literal trash, the information that's on their receipts as they crumple them up and throw them in the garbage, then turning it into treasure. We've had a couple of companies approach us with scam stuff, and they've touted the benefits of, hey, instead of doing a mailing list, instead of relying on Twitter or your marketing and your content, instead you should just get everybody to have an app, because once you have an app, the open rates are astonished. Like, an acceptable open rate for an email will be 10%, whereas if you blast everyone with your app saying right now, new object available, please buy, you'll get a 50% response rate on it, which I was not interested in, because I feel like our job job should be to expand our base, not mine it even harder. But if this is an irresistible premise, if all of a sudden you get, let's say 50 million people because the deal is just too good, you have a very big base and you can afford to piss off a lot of people with spontaneous offers when you're offering something as good as the proposition that MoviePass offers.
I have a MoviePass. Do you know what I've gotten a lot lately?
Yeah.
Marketing emails about movies that are out.
Really?
And it's not the big name movies that are coming out and everybody knows. It's like, oh, hey, you know, this movie called Call Me By Your Name is coming out. You know, here's a little bit about it. And it's kind of cool because it's not like, you know, sign up. It's not like, you know, sign
Are you
up
sure it's because of MoviePass?
It's coming directly from a MoviePass.
It is. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
And it's like, hey, just here's an information about this movie. And it's not like, you know, re-up your MoviePass or go to X Theater.
Yeah.
It's just like, I just told you about a movie. I have no call to action for you. Go watch this movie
because
for
you
free.
already can see every movie with your
Go see it
pass
for free anywhere at any time. And it's kind of nice because it's always been movies I've either known a little bit about or have not known about at all.
They've been movies that, had they access to all of your personal data, they would have appropriately figured out, yeah, he's probably interested in.
Or just stuff I wouldn't have known.
They're trying to test and see, like, what moves the needle. We're going to try this kind of movie and see.
Yeah. And so I don't know that it's been tailored for me. That was just the first one I could think of because that one was a good hit. But there have been a couple, kind of maybe a little more emails than I would expect. But it could be something where it will eventually, or maybe it does, base it off of my personal preferences. But we'll see.
So Sherry Redstone, Sumner Redstone's daughter, 63 years old. Okay, so even though she's a daughter, Sumner Redstone, very old, is the person kind of running things at National Amusements. National Amusements owns CBS and Viacom, and a while back they separated CBS and Viacom. More recently, a couple of years ago, Sherry Redstone said we should put those two together again. Then she changed her mind and said, no, we should keep them separate. Well, guess what? She's changed her mind again and now thinks CBS and Viacom should merge and is pushing for new directors to be named to the CBS board in May and is having talks with CBS CEO Les Moonves about it.
Man, that's fascinating, but I don't know how many more iterations of this story will keep it fascinating for me.
Yeah.
At some point, Jim and Pam just got to get married.
It's on its way. I mean, CBS and Viacom, even together, are smaller than Netflix or the combined Disney Fox that we may get in a year, or AT&T or Comcast. Like, they kind of need to merge.
Yeah, that's crazy. And what's funny is the deciding factor had nothing to do with the business strategies of either of those, how well they've been doing. The only thing that changed is the world around them, and then suddenly it makes sense. Meanwhile, Spike TV has relaunched as the Paramount Network, focusing on general entertainment, specializing in scripted drama and comedy. Paramount Network President Kevin Kay said, quote, "We want to make linear TV urgent again." Oh, that... What? Kay believes wanting people to watch live or the same day can drive conversations around show in a way that Netflix's binge release strategy can. So, if you were a fan of the Nashville Network and stuck around while it became the National Network, then stuck around as it became Spike TV, then get ready to... and then hope it would become Esquire, but then it didn't. And then now it's Paramount. Finally, Paramount has a network.
Again.
Because
they had UPN. That's where I used to watch Deep Space Nine when it was new. This is probably what made Sherry Redstone change her mind. She's like, really? You're gonna force people to watch linear TV? You're gonna make linear... we need to combine these two. Facebook has hired Peter Hutton, CEO of Eurosport, which, if you don't know, is a huge worldwide live sports network, to lead negotiations for the acquisition of worldwide live sports streams for Facebook. Hutton will join Facebook after the Winter Olympics, which is a big deal for Eurosport. So after February, he'll become Facebook's negotiating guy for sports.
And Amazon Fire TV is getting the update to show currently airing shows and channels like HBO and Showtime, which offer live streams through Amazon Prime in a grid that shows the next 2 weeks of programming. You'll be able to tell Fire TV to watch those channels by voice as well. The grid is dead. Long live the grid.
I mean, it's kind of brilliant because suddenly Amazon looks like a TV provider. Because you're like, oh, I can watch HBO or Stars, or they have a bunch of other channels on there that you can sign up for, and they're all in a nice little grid. And suddenly, if I'm CBS and I added all access to that, I'm like, haha, I'm the only broadcast network up there, right? And it starts to maybe want other networks to say, ooh, maybe that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
All right, folks, let's get to the dispatches from the front. Tony in Albany, Oregon says, I thought I'd offer my 2 cents on both the importance of sound and the echo. We're just going to talk about his thoughts on sound, though, for time's sake. He says, I'm an audiophile on the spectrum, but I'm not hardcore. I like good quality sound, and particularly surround sound for the best cinematic experience at home. A great picture just isn't immersive enough for me without full enveloping sound to accompany it. However, I really can't tell the difference between most low, mid-range sound systems and formats during general listening situations. So I have a relatively cheap Yamaha 7.1 audio-visual receiver, which also acts as my HDMI switcher. Everything connects to it, and I have just one cable out to the display. For those in apartments or places with thin walls, most systems like this have a quiet listening mode. This mode reduces the dynamic range for all the channels, so you can keep the volume lower without missing the subtle surround effects. It's not the way I prefer to enjoy it, but I typically watch my shows after my wife goes to bed, and she doesn't want to hear them in the next room.
Yeah, that's a real thing. Do you think that this is more rehashing of it, whether it's okay to just listen with headphones or whatever versus being in the room? Yeah, we'd love to hear more of these stories. Belissa says, hi, Tom and Brian. I may have an explanation for the sudden increase in Hulu subscribers. My son has a student Spotify account, and in September, they added the lowest tier of Hulu for free. This is just for the student Spotify paid membership, which costs $4.99 a month. Spotify is saying they have 70 million paid members, though I couldn't find data on how many of those have the student plan. If these students are counted as Hulu members, which, by the way, I'm sure they are, even if they're not using it, does that artificially inflate their subscriber numbers? To which I say, yes, it would.
No, I don't think it artificially inflates them. Anybody that you're selling a membership to, because I'm sure Spotify is making Hulu whole on the back end for this deal somehow. And
by the way, this is not new territory. I know that when somebody's launching a new network or whatever, or inviting you to make a show on their network, they always talk about how we're in 300 million homes, by which they mean their channel is available to 300 million homes with various cable providers or whatever. It does not mean those people are watching and so on. So it's that installed base sounding like a number that means how many people are watching, and it really isn't.
And Nicole, you deal with these kinds of stories all the time, I know, in various regions, not just cord cutting. These kinds of things can sound like they have a bigger impact than they do.
I think you're right. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it has some impact, right? It's not going to say it has zero impact, but I don't think it has as big of an impact as you might think. Not as much as, people think it is. Like, I think how many student subscribers accounts translate to having Hulu paid accounts? Probably pretty small, I'm guessing, but we'll see.
Yeah. Now, we talked about swearing on shows last week, and we got 3 emails. So we have reactions to swearing served 3 ways by our chefs today. Tim is in Australia, and he says, swear words here are used for emphasis and expression more than anything. What did my head in was the comments about how too much swearing in recent TV shows. What nearly all Australians can't understand about the U.S. is why, in Breaking Bad, someone can be shot and stabbed repeatedly and have that shown in full, yet an F word is censored with a noticeable gap in the dialogue while their mouth is still moving.
Yeah.
Now, Dave in Waco said, listen, my wife and I agree. We really don't want to hear people continually using profanity. They were watching the Philip K. Dick Electric Dreams anthology, and after 5 minutes decided that was just too much profanity for the situation on screen. They're like, we didn't like Kingsman, The Golden Circle for the same reason. They're like, we just don't want it, and we don't enjoy it. And then OMG Muffin said, I'm your boss from Other Works, and I just wanted to give my opinion. I don't think there's enough cursing. It's just not realistic. I watch a lot of superhero shows, though, and there are so many times when they're awake and getting stitches or simply being hit so hard that bones break, and they don't curse. It's not realistic.
They're like, ow, wee, zowie, pow,
that darn
hurts. Meanwhile, John writes in saying, Dear Cordkillers, this is the same John who responded last week. He said, I heard your response to my question about Hallmark's new channels. I played it for my wife, and when she heard that she can get 3 Hallmark channels, her eyes lit up. Guess I'll be checking out Sling TV soon.
All right. Well, I hope that works out for you, John, and happy to help. Nicole Lee, thank you so much for being with us again.
Gosh darn it, me too.
Gadzooks, I just amputated my foot.
Well, listen, you can follow Nicole on Twitter very easily if you remember her name is Nicole, because her Twitter name is Nicole.
Yes. Twitter.com/Nicole.
And, of course, you've got all kinds of other good stuff going on. Where should folks look for that?
You should go to engadget.com for all of my writings and more.
Excellent. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we're live on twitch.tv, also on diamondclub.tv. Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will cut your cords again next week.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
let's go.
It's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.